Hey, what's up? It's Moshe Loren. And for 23 years, I was the voice on the radio behind the mic in cities like St. Louis, Philly, and West Palm Beach, connecting with listeners and sharing stories and just being a voice for the community. We've laughed together, we've cried together, and we've navigated the crazy ups and downs of this life together. But then life threw me a curveball. After my 10-year marriage ended, everything changed overnight. And I found myself asking, so what now? This podcast is my answer. And it's not just my journey, it's ours. It's for those of us who have had to reset, pivot, or start over in the face of life's unexpected challenges. Together, we'll explore healing, happiness, grief, self-reflection, forgiveness, dating, yes, dating, because I got to get back in these streets, and everything in between. Through my journey, I'm creating a safe space for us to come together, reclaim our strength, and rebuild our lives. You don't have to go through this alone. Together, we'll find the confidence to create the happily ever after we all deserve. So what now? Let's figure it out together. Hey, what's up, my good people, my village. Welcome and happy Thursday to you. Welcome to the So What Now podcast. My name is Moshe Loren. I'm so excited to be here with you. Can I tell you something honestly? When I wake up on Thursdays, I so look forward to 7 o'clock. I really do. It's like, it's the bright spot in my day anymore. I'm just happy to be here. I'm happy to be building this village with you. This is the podcast for those of us who are turning painful endings into beautiful new beginnings, okay? And one of the things that we do here on the So What Now podcast is we libate and we hydrate. So anytime you take a sip, make sure you hydrate, okay? So I'll start off for you. Libate. Boom. So let's just jump right into this week's show with some gratitude, shall we? This is the way I like to start every show. And as you know, this show, like I said before, is not just a show. It's not just about me. It's about the village that we are building. And it means so much to me for me to hear from you. It means so much for me to hear from you. And I got to say, in the last few weeks, we've been on the air now. On the air, see, I think I'm broadcasting like a radio show, but it is sort of on the air, right? We've been podcasting now for 5 weeks. This is our 5th week, and every week I get one of these milestones for YouTube to show how many views I've gotten on my page. So we're up to 11,000 views. That is so major. I wish I had this in the class. Right. So thank you so much. I want to remind you to like, subscribe, and share. Please, if you are getting anything out of this, please share with your friends, share with your family, and when it's good, you gotta share it. Don't keep it all to yourself. I like to always highlight and show some gratitude to a special villager. You know, I gotta get a name for my village. It's the village, but if you had to use a noun to describe the village, I gotta figure out what that is. If you have any ideas or suggestions, please, I'm open ears for that. But this comes to me from one of our villagers, and she says, Moshe, thank you for sharing this story. I am incredibly sorry to hear what has happened in your life. Your story made my heart fall to pieces and inspired and encouraged me. Your story is similar to mine, except I ended the engagement in March. My ex also had a sex and porn addiction. We went to several therapists to help, and he too would continue to engage in the promiscuous behavior. We were supposed to get married in Jamaica in December, and we had to give the guests back their money. I just wanted to roll over and die when everything first came crashing down. Hearing you cry and share your story was like listening to mine out loud. I experienced the same emotions you spoke of in your first and second podcast. I am 37 years old and was hoping my life would look different at this point, but I'm finding hope, healing, and freedom like never before. Thank you so much for being vulnerable, sharing your story, and inspiring others. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I appreciate you so much for just writing in, taking time to write in and to share with me your own personal testimony. I think it's so very important to share because you just never know on the other side of your testimony someone else is healing. So thank you so much for sharing. As you well know, October marks National Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And as you also know, if you've been following me for any amount of time, you know that I am a staunch advocate for survivors. I too am a survivor of domestic violence. The statistic is staggering. It really is. They say that 1 in every 3 women will go through domestic violence at some point in her life. So I always like to say, if you know 3 women, you ultimately know one. So if you or someone else you know are going through this, know that there's help out there. You can call the National Domestic Violence hotline at 1-800-799-7233. The number is right there at the bottom of the screen. Next week is the end of the month, and actually our podcast will be live on October 31st. So I will be sharing my own personal journey and story of survival through domestic violence, from fear to freedom, and I invite you to tune in. All right, so let's get this party started, shall we? Let's get this conversation started. I need a little libation. I had to think about which one was the libation and hydration. I need a little libation and some hydration. All right. So as you all know, the only thing constant in life is change, right? And whether you've been along with us from the beginning, or you're just now discovering us here at So What Now, chances are you are here because something in your life has changed in a major way. And perhaps you're looking for folks to connect with, a community to connect with, to help you make sense of your new reality. That's the reason I started this show. I started this show because I wanted to connect with other people who were traveling the same road as me. If nothing's happened yet, let me tell you something. As life goes on, and as you're blessed to see another day, trust me, a major change will happen at some point. So when these changes happen, sometimes it comes with a great deal of grief. It comes with a lot of grief, and grief brings about so many different, a myriad of emotions. And at the start of my healing journey, and even some days right now, I find myself asking, how will I ever get through this? And the other day, just yesterday, in fact, I was preparing for this show, and I ran across this video.
Respectful. This is disrespecting your.
Said we couldn't do it, but looks like we made it. Look how far we've come, my baby. We might have took the long way. We knew we'd get there someday. They said, I bet they'll never make it. But just look at us holding on. We're still together, still going strong. You're still the one I run to, the one that I belong to, still the one I want for.
Let me just tell you a little bit about this video. This video was last year. It was a camping trip that we had planned for our anniversary. And I came across this video, and the first thing that I felt was happy. That was the first emotion that I felt, is I just smiled. I just smiled because I remember that weekend. We had such an amazing weekend. It was a quiet little retreat, and it was like a staycation because it wasn't far from where we lived, but you would never know you were in Atlanta, right? It's buried in these woods and had a beautiful lake. You had your own canoe. It was a tree house, and it was really secluded. So the first thing I thought when I saw the video is I was super happy. And then the next emotion that I felt was super sad, right? Super sad. And then I went from being sad to being angry. And that is because what I later found out is that a few days before we went on this camping trip, he was in Chicago with another woman. A few days before this camping trip, he was in Chicago with another woman. And so in that 54-second video, in just 54 seconds, I experienced 3 emotional responses. I was happy, I was sad, and I was angry all at the same time. And this is a part of the grief. It's really a part of the grief. So this episode, I want to sort of look at as my personal handbook and survival guide, if you will. And I think that it's so very important. It's so very important to discuss this. I wanted to discuss the stages of grief because I didn't have a handbook. I didn't have a survival guide on how to grieve properly. And I wanted to make sure that I took you through my journey so you can better understand what to expect. If you haven't gone through severe grief yet, you'll know what to expect and be better equipped to handle it. So when we return from this break, I really want to unpack the 5 stages of grief.
Step into Closet Bar, the spot where fashion meets attitude and every piece is a vibe. Whether you're looking to shake or stir up a night out or something casual for your everyday slay, they've got pieces that'll serve you day and night. From casual to sexy, trendy, and timeless. Freshen up your wardrobe with Closet Bar. Timeless pieces, brunch pieces, day with your bae pieces, and everything in between. At Closet Bar, fashion is made for everyone. With a wide range of sizes and styles, there's something for every woman. No matter your age, shape, or vibe. Want some extra help curating your look? Book a personal style session and let our experts craft the perfect outfits for you, tailored to your personality and lifestyle. Head over to Closet Bar and get a taste of what it means to stand out. Shop the latest collections and upgrade your style game. Don't miss out on the must-have pieces that'll keep you fly and fierce no matter where the day or night takes you. Whether it's a statement piece or everyday essential, Closet Bar has what you need to feel confident and look amazing. For your next signature look, shop myclosetbar.com. Use the word closet at checkout and receive a 10% discount. Closet Bar, because you deserve to look as good as you feel.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Please like, subscribe, and share so we can get our views up and build our village. All right, so let's get back to our conversation. We're talking about the 5 stages of grief, right? So the most common model for the different stages of grief is the Kubler-Ross model, which says that grief exists in the following steps. So one of the grieving stages is denial, right? Denial is when you just can't believe that this is what you're going through, that you are thinking, okay, this is not permanent. This is somehow going to fix itself, or something's going to fix it. For me, I hit this stage while I was in the marriage. I was going through denial while I was in the marriage, and I just became numb as a coping mechanism. As a coping mechanism, I just became numb to what was going on around me. That was my way of coping, because I was denying that his behavior wouldn't change. That's what I was in denial of. I was in denial that his behavior wouldn't change. I was holding out on hope. I talked about this in one of the earlier episodes. So by the time I filed for divorce, there was no denying. I knew that this was happening. I didn't have much hope at the point in which I went and filed for divorce. One of the other stages of grief, they say, is bargaining. That's when you're like thinking, oh my God, well, what if I do this? Or what if I do that? If only I would have done. And you just start going back and forth and thinking about the woulda, shoulda, coulda type of things. And you start bargaining with yourself. I didn't necessarily feel like that, because I truly felt by the time I went to file, this had been 10 years, y'all. This hadn't been, 10 months. This hadn't been, a year and 1 or 2 little things happened. This was 10 years of the same behavior, serial infidelity over and over and over again. So there was no bargaining about what I could have done better. So that wasn't a emotion of grief that I've been experienced or that I have experienced. The other one is depression.
Depression is that really quiet stage of grief, right? It's contrast. So the earlier stages of this, road to divorce, if you will, I absolutely busied myself out of feeling the depression. I busied myself. I did anything and everything you can think of. I was already working out, but I beefed up my working out. And then, I started to take more trips and spend more time with my girlfriends and my family, and just any moment that I could be busy doing something, whether it be at work or recreationally, I was doing it because I just didn't want to feel, the feelings. And that's not sustainable. Okay, that's so not sustainable. Trust me when I tell you. So once you realize that's not sustainable, because I'm gonna tell you what happens, right? It's almost like busy becomes a drug. And you're busy, doing, going. And then when there's nothing to do, when there's nowhere to go, all of a sudden you just crash out. And then you're sitting in this mess, and you're having to deal with it, right? You're like, oh my God, this is my life. And so once I had to recognize that I couldn't busy myself out of feeling depressed, I just allowed myself to submit to the feeling. The other stage of grief is acceptance, right? Acceptance is not necessarily happy. You're not necessarily happy when you've accepted it, but you've accepted that this is your new reality, right? That's the realistic thing to do. Or you can stay delulu and not accept it, and then that's a whole other podcast for another day. But acceptance is really just understanding that this is what's happening, right? And sitting in that, and not trying to deny it anymore. It doesn't mean you've moved past it. Like I said, it just means that you've accepted it. You've had a major change in your life, like it really upends the way you feel about things. So understand that, acceptance does not automatically put a smile on your face. It just is a part of reality. The other emotion that you feel oftentimes is anger. Now, I will tell you, anger is not the most productive emotion. Matter of fact, it's not productive at all. It's really a symptom of something bigger. It's a symptom of your hurt. It's a symptom of betrayal. It's a symptom of something bigger. And sometimes, if I had to be 100% honest and transparent, it's a very transparent moment, people. Sometimes I didn't express my anger in the most productive ways.
Disrespectful. This is disrespecting your belongings, just the way you disrespected me for 10 motherfucking years. This is disrespectful. You want to continue to be disrespectful, Johnny? I'm going to show you disrespectful. I'm going to get real ignorant and disrespectful like you've been, okay? Fuck you. Fuck all your shit.
Okay, so let me just give you some backstory and unpack that a little bit, okay? Earlier stages, okay, I had found out that he went on another business trip. Because did I tell you that the Chicago trip was a business trip? This is how he got on these trips, because he was telling me that he was going on a business trip. And so I found out that he was going to North Carolina. He went to North Carolina, rather. And I found out that it was in fact not a business trip. And he went down there with some friends of his. Mind you, remember we talked about in earlier episodes, we talked about the people that you hang with. Some of the people that he hangs around with, they too are married, and they too participate in the same behaviors as him. And so he was going on this business trip with these friends to North Carolina, because the goal was to go out there and sort of survey the market, because we do real estate, surveying the market and see what's going on out there. Maybe we can build our shop in North Carolina, just get out there and sort of get in the streets, sort of thing. And I'm like, okay, go, please, because we both can't be in the same place at the same time. We were running a business together, so it's sort of a conquer. You go over here and do what you do, I'll stay back here and do what I do. that sort of thing. So that's the premise in which he went to North Carolina. Well, he would do his normal check-ins. He would check in the morning, check in a few times during the midday, and check in at night before he went to bed. And this particular night, I had called, and I called him. He didn't answer. I called a couple times. He didn't answer. I called the friend that he was down there with, and he didn't answer. And then I ended up finding out that he wasn't where he said he was going to be staying. He was supposed to be staying at his friend's house, and he wasn't there. So the long story short of it is, when I found out that he was down there he was up there from Atlanta up. When he was up there with this woman, I just went off. I went off because I was just like, I cannot believe. Remember, this is now after, okay? This is all after, the Chicago trip when we went camping. This is after that. So I just was angry, and the office was his office that I sort of built out for him. And, I broke up a few things. I was mad. Jasmine Sullivan busted the windows out somebody's car. So I broke up a few vases and things like that. It ain't a car. It wasn't as expensive to replace. You know what I'm saying? I could have, okay. I ain't gonna tell y'all what I could have did. I'm glad I didn't do what I wanted to do, or what my first mind was to do, because we wouldn't be here talking, and there would be no So What Now podcast. All right. So I just wanted to kind of unpack that for you. But anger is a very real emotion. And while I will not and do not suggest that you take your anger out in those ways, I can't say that I blame people for acting out, because when it's a matter of the heart, sometimes you just react first and think secondly. And I'm just happy that I reacted in that way and not the other way that I really wanted to react. So those are all the stages of grief. Those are the stages of grief. And the Kubler-Ross model was originally created to help people who were facing the end of life, right? Helping them to come to terms with their own death and their own mortality. And oftentimes, the loss of something significant, be it a relationship, a marriage, a job, a friend, is death, right? It's death in its own way. It's the death of that chapter. It's the death of that relationship, friendship. It's the death of whatever that situation that you have become accustomed to. And I would almost venture to say that it could be almost worse. And here's why: because death is final, right? When someone passes away, your loved one passes away, sure, there's a lot of grief, there's heavy grief, but that's final. You'll never hear their voice again. You'll never see their face again. They'll never call your phone again. And so you go through those stages of grief, and you get to the acceptance part, and you realize that person is gone. And so over time, they say, time heals all wounds. And over time, you eventually heal, and you don't have to sort of deal with them. In this case, the relationship is over, the connection is gone, but the person still exists, right? The person still exists. And if you share children, if you share kids with this person, or like me, in the case of having a business together and just being deeply financially entangled, you still have to be in contact. You still have to talk to them. You still have to see them while grieving. Can you imagine? While grieving. So that's why, and I've experienced death. So I have the unfortunate of, is unfortunate a word? Unfortunate. I have the unfortunate contrast to be able to say, I know what it's like to lose someone, and I know what it's like to lose someone to death, and I know what it's like to lose someone to just the dissolution of a marriage. So aren't we just so lucky, though? Aren't we just so lucky? They just came out with 2 bonus stages of grief, right? 2 more bonus stages of grief. And the other 2 stages, though, are hope and shock, because some people do go into shock. When something traumatic happens in their life, especially if you weren't expecting it, you go into shock. That's usually an emotion that, and I guess shock is sort of like denial. It closely resembles what it would feel like to be in denial. And the other emotion that they just added to this model, if you will, is hope. And I will tell you how hope over this 10 months, it's been what, 10 months? Almost 11 months. November 3rd will be 11 months. Over these last 10 and a half plus months, when I feel hopeful, it's because I've accepted that this is where I am. I've accepted that I've got to start rebuilding. I've accepted that things are going to be different. This is a new chapter. I'm a new person. I've accepted that. So the hope in what my future brings, the hope in what I'm going to do tomorrow, the hope in what I'm going to build on my own, the hope that my heart will heal, I'll love again, all of that hope brings me so much happiness. But it's still a part of the grieving process. Right? But it's a more productive part of the grieving process, because you're starting to resolve those other maybe not so productive emotions. Does that make sense? Am I making sense to anybody but myself right now? Just, I'll let you hear me. Okay, I can't hear you, but I imagine that this resonates with you if you've been through anything similar. Okay, guys, I've got to libate and hydrate. Libation, hydration. Give me 1 second. I just want to talk to my my producer for a second. Hey, Nick. Hey, how are we sounding over there? What are the people saying? Is my mic on? My microphone's on? You can hear stuff in my microphone? Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to my headphones are rattling. So I'm going to take the headphones out now that we know that hey, listen, guys, let me tell you something. And I was honest about this from day one. And I'm always going to be honest and transparent with you. That is, this podcast is my, oh, gosh, okay. Let me make sure it's still on. This podcast is my baby. And I started this podcast and I did not have a whole lot of direction as to, I can't get this thing out. It's like, is it glued in there? Oh, there we go. Check it now. Check with the people and make sure it's not rattling and all that. But this podcast is my baby. It really is. It's a passion project because, like I said earlier in the show, I wanted a tool to help me to heal. And I knew what I wanted to do. I didn't have it all together. Technically, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where we need to do the platforms and all the things. And so a beautiful mess is what it's been for 5 weeks. And every week it'll get better and better and better. But I just want you to be on the journey of seeing how it started and where it will end up. Because I promise you, where it started is not where it's going to end up. I promise you that. I don't strive for perfection. I just strive for excellence. And that's what I would encourage you guys to do. I'm not going to get off into a tangent on that because that's going to probably come in a later show. But I just wanted to kind of disclaim that because I had to take a sidebar and make sure that the audio and everything is sounding good and all that stuff. So let's get back to this thing about grief. The thing about grief too is what you should understand, because many people think that all those stages that I just talked about, many people think that you're going to go through those stages in order. That you're going to go, the first thing you're going to be is in shock, or the first thing you're going to be is in denial. And then from denial, you're going to go to, that's not how it goes. Grief does not come in this neat little cycle. No, it doesn't happen like that. You have some high highs and some really low lows. And as you can see in that video, in that 54-second video, right? I told you I had 3 emotional responses in that one 54-second video. And in a day, I can go from happy to sad to, back to happy again. And that's how grief will take you. And it's triggered by different things. Different things will trigger a different level of grief for you. And one of the things that I will say is sometimes, like the other day, what was this? This is Thursday. I want to say it was Monday. This is so crazy. I was in the bed. I don't watch a lot of TV, but I happened to be watching TV on my way to sleep the other day. And there was a commercial that came on, and the commercial came on. And when it came on, it was a commercial of, it was like a vacation commercial. It wasn't any place that we had ever been. It wasn't any place that we had ever been, but I immediately thought about my Italy vacation. I thought about my grief, and I just started bawling. And that's how I got to sleep that night, because I was like, man, these are the dreams that I had, to travel with my person and all the. So it just hit me, and I cried myself to sleep. So I guess the silver lining in that is that I did get a good night's sleep that night. So you just really got to allow the grief to, you got to really just allow yourself to sit in the grief. So coping with grief, that's what we're talking about. I want to talk to you more about how to move through it. So when we get back, I want to talk to you about how I have really been coping with the grief and moving through it.
Enjoying the show so far? Well, please like, comment, subscribe, or share. And to keep up with all things Moshe Loren, that's me, head over to MosheLoren.com.
All right, so let's just talk about some tips for moving through it. So, like I said before, I didn't say this before, but I'll say it now. Grief is not something that you just get over. It's not that simple that it happens and then you just wake up the next day and you're over it. It's something that you really have to move through and you have to go through. And like I said earlier, you can't busy yourself to try to avoid it. That is not what you want to do. You want to learn to sit in the emotions and really feel them when they arise. Les Brown had said something to me years ago. I interviewed him on one of my radio shows. And he said to me years ago about grief, he said, there's 4 quadrants of emotion in life. So there's, over here, you've got, let's say, the happy house, right? And right here, you've got the sad house. You've got the angry house, and you've got the anxious house, right? So you got happy, sad, anger, and anxious. And he said, it's okay. Like, it's okay for you to visit each one of those houses. You can knock on angry's door sometimes. You can knock on, happy's door sometimes and all the things. But you can't stay too long. You can't overstay your welcome in those houses. You've got to find a way to live. You can't take a temporary permanent residence in those houses. You got to find a way to live right in the middle, right? Permanent residence somewhere in the middle of those 4 houses, because you can't be happy all the time. It's not sustainable. And you can't be angry all the time. That's not productive nor sustainable. You feel what I'm saying? So you really have to move around in those emotions, but you need to park yourself and find permanent residence right in the middle of that quadrant. Back to the middle. India.Arie, who we were just listening to before the show, India.Arie got a song called Go Back to the Middle, Come Back, Go Back to the Middle. Y'all know that song? So just find your way back to the middle of that quadrant, and that's where you will find your balance. Give yourself permission. Literally give yourself permission to grieve. Counseling. Counseling is a tool. I think the myth about counseling being for crazy people, I think it's safe to say that we've debunked that myth. She over here muting my mic. You muting my mic. Okay. So I think it's safe to say that we have debunked the myth of counseling. Counseling is a productive way to help you move through grief, because they give you tools. They provide you with real tools to navigate the stages of grief. That's something that I totally believe in. Shout out to my counselor, Kay Bellamy. Hey, Kay, I'm trying to get her on the show because I really want to do a show with my counselor. I've been transparent. There's not much that I talk about in my sessions that I've not shared with you already. But I think it would be helpful for those who are watching, who are going through something, that haven't taken up the opportunity or the gift of counseling to sort of see how it works. So Kay, I need you to come and sit on the couch with me, Kay. So counseling is definitely a tool that I think you should use. The other thing is to find community. Find community. And that's what we're building here in the So What Now podcast space. We're building our village because grieving and mourning, while they are often interchangeable, they are a little different because grief is an internal emotional response to a loss, right? Where mourning is an external expression of the grief, right? So finding your tribe and your village and your support system and circle really helps to process the loss collectively. When my husband had gone into treatment for addiction, I also went to Al-Anon, which is the support group that helps families of addicts. And I learned so much. Not only did I learn so much, but I was able to build community because we were all in there for the same reason. So nobody could judge anybody. Nobody could judge anybody. And we were just there to lift and support and encourage each other. And that's what we're doing here on the So What Now podcast. So definitely find your community. But if you're watching or if you're listening, I think you found it. And we're so happy to have you here. The other thing I suggest that you do is to journal. This is another one of my journals. I have so many journals. I talked about it last week. I am a journaler. Thanks, Oprah. It was because of Oprah I started to journal. Back when she had the Oprah Winfrey Show, she used to always talk about journaling. And I think she still does talk about it a great deal, even today. And I started journaling. I meant to bring my journal down here. I promise you, y'all, I got a journal. I found a journal from 2008. And I got it upstairs. But needless to say, journaling. Journaling is a way to get emotional clarity on what you're feeling. Because it's so much going on up here. Like, this head is but so big. It can hold but so much. And so it's so much better to get it out, to just black. And it doesn't have to make sense. It's your journal. Nobody should be reading your journal. It doesn't have to make sense. You just have to get it from here to here. Just let the thought come out. And it provides a lot of self-awareness when you're able to do that, when you're able to write it down. There's a saying that says, write it down and make it plain. When you write it down, you read it back, and you become so much more self-aware, right? And it helps you to really process your thoughts and your emotions. And the other thing that journaling does and benefits it helps you to foster self-reflection. It helps you to foster, and it's not that you go back and read your journal all the time, but I had moments where I stumble upon an old journal and I just start flipping through the pages and I'm reading entries in my journal and I'm like, reading it like, and I'm looking, you can almost see the dried up tears on the, on the page, how it kind of wrinkles the page. And I'm like, child, I was toe up on this day. Oh my God, you couldn't have told me that the world wasn't about to end. You could not have told me the world wasn't about to end. And so when you read back some of your old journal entries and you've gotten through that and you look back at it, you're like, child, girl, sit down somewhere. Really. And then you start praising and thanking God, because you're like, God, you be doing your big one. Like, you really be doing your big one. You know what I'm saying? Because he got you through. These are your tangible receipts that God will bring you through. So journaling has been very helpful for me in this process and these stages of grief that I'm going through as a result of the dissolution of my marriage, but just in life in general. I love journaling. I need to talk to my producer really quick because I need a mark. How we doing on time over there, darling? What is it, 7:39? Okay, all right. So what I also want to do, guys, is I want to, because I'm about to tell you guys and talk to you guys about what I've learned. Oh God, guess who wants to make an appearance, everybody? Guess who wants to make an appearance? Boy, okay, come on. She said, I'm cute. You need to show me off every week because I'm cute. Come here, you got something on your nose. That means that you were doing something you had no business doing. Hey guys, this is Milo. Milo, say hi. Say hi. Max is a little more shy. She doesn't have to be all up in the video. I got dogs that want to be all up in the video. Okay, let her just sit here. But the last thing that I will say before I talk to you guys about what I've learned is use this podcast if you will, even if it's not something that you're going through. If ever you tune in and we're in an episode that is not necessarily relating to what your experience is in the now, share it with somebody else. Because let me tell you something, people always feel like they're alone. They feel isolated and alone in what they're going through. And the fact of the matter is that we're not isolated in anything that we're going through. There's always somebody out there going through something similar or even worse. So give it as a gift to somebody who may be going through something, even if it's not you at that moment. And I will tell you something about isolation too. I'm glad I said that word because it brought about a thought. One of the other things that I've learned about myself in these almost 11 months is that I am so goddamn cool. Like, I love hanging with me. Do you know that I am more alone and isolated than I am with people? And I love that because it's given me a chance to really get to know myself a little bit more. Because when you think about it, I raised my daughter, and after my daughter, I was always in real serious relationships, long-term relationships. So I've never really had a long period of time by myself, or allow me to relinquish that. I've never really had long periods of time with myself. Thanks to Iana Von Zant, she gave me that relanguaging technique. Relanguaging means that you just sort of, count yourself and validate yourself with somebody. So I've never really spent time with myself for a long period of time. And so I love being with myself. I go out to eat and go to the movies. I'm planning a solo trip by myself. So being isolated is really good for the soul, right? But just balance. Remember, be balanced in whatever you do, because too much isolation could, lead to depression. And I don't want you to slip into a zone of depression because you're not interacting and being social with other people. Okay. So that's what I want to say to you. Now I want to tell you what I've learned. Every show we like to end with what I've learned. And so what I've learned about my grief is to focus on the now. Take things one day at a time. You cannot rush this process. You have to experience it all. And people may not always understand why you ain't over it by now. It can be 10, 11 months later. It can be 10 years later, 2 years later. And people are like, why you ain't over that by now? Quiet the noise. Turn the volume down on them, for real. Turn the volume down on them. And like I just said, prepare to be lonely. Prepare to be isolated and lonely, because grief is a lonely journey. In the days and the weeks and the months after the initial shock for everyone else dissipates, after everybody else, they got the news, and now, it's been some weeks, it's been some months later, it becomes yesterday's news to everybody, right? But yet, you're still sitting in it. It still greets you in the morning when you wake up, and it puts you to bed every night before you go to sleep. In your isolation, you will gain a deeper sense of self and awareness, admiration, and appreciation of self, right? I'm just reiterating what I just said. And ultimately, you'll have a better relationship with God, because when no one is around, He is ever present. So what now is and hosted by moi, our technical engineer is at Google Produce. Warren Thomas of City Country Creators designed our beautiful website and our logo, motionbuilders.com. And Takia Crawford and Shamika Maddox are our social media managers. Now, this part of the show is over, but the show is not over. The party is just getting started. So what now? TikTok Talk Back is next. Make sure y'all join me right over there directly after this live stream, so we can continue to chat and talk. If you want to just spend some more time in community, do it over there on TikTok. Find me at Moshe Ren. And we want to hear from you. We want to hear from you, so join the conversation right here. Every week, 7 o'clock, we will be here. Follow me on all social platforms: YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, at Moshe Loren. And join me back here. It's so important that you subscribe, like, and share. you are enjoying what we are doing here, if you want to continue to help us build this village, please subscribe, like, and share. And I want this to be a talk back community. You know what that means? I want to have a conversation with you. So remember to leave your comments, and I will always respond to them. All right. I want to hear about how you have turned your unexpected ending. I have to know this by now. Your unexpected endings into new beginning. Remember, your story is your strength, and on the other side, healing is helping. Thank you so much for joining me.